All right, so I'm going to talk about the 5 basic volumetric forms that all complicated objects can be simplified down into. And these are the basic building blocks of drawing things in construction, or with the construction method of drawing. So it's going to be sphere, cube, cone, pyramid, and cylinder. Okay, so these 5: sphere, cube, cone, pyramid, cylinder. So off to the side, I'm just going to sketch out what those are individually. A sphere, just a circle, but with form. Okay, remember a sphere has volume to it, whereas a circle would just be two-dimensionally flat. A cube, if I were to draw one in about 2-point perspective-ish, something like that, okay? A cone is an ellipse on the bottom, and then it converges to a point there at the top. A pyramid starts off with a flat square in perspective, and then the corners converge up to a point, so similar to a cone, but with flat planes. And then a cylinder is an ellipse at the top and bottom, and then you have edges that vertically come straight down. Cylinders can also, of course, be side to side like that. Okay, so we have established our 5 main building blocks. So as I'm thinking through how to put these basic individual building blocks together to make something a single object, what I'm going to be doing is just taking these 5 different volumetric forms, and I'm just going to be combining them with some overlapping. And this exercise is going to require you to think through logically how something would visually be overlapping or cutting into something else. Specifically, this is going to be for the assignment of the construction perspective quiz over forms. And the quiz specifically is just the 5, just one of each, so the 5 different volumetric forms working together to make one single shape, but it's just an abstract shape. It's not going to actually look like anything per se that is representational of something specific. And so what I'm going to start off with is a cube. Now I'm going to make sure that the perspective is consistent with all of my volumetric forms. So with all of my shapes, it needs to be a consistent perspective, either parallel angles, so something maybe that would be like isometric, or 2-point perspective. What I'm going to do is off to the side, sorry for that shadow, by the way, of the light above me. I'm just going to do your basic cube. That's what's going to start me off. And I'm just going to keep general parallel angles. I'm not going back to any particular vanishing point. I'm keeping just lines parallel generally. All right, so there's my 2-point perspective cube. I'm going to keep whatever I've established as my perspective here. I'm just going to keep that for the rest of my my shapes. So I've already done the cube. I need to include these other 4: sphere, cone, pyramid, and cylinder. I need to have it interact in some sort of overlapping or cutting in way into this voluminous form of the cube. So let me just do, I'll do the cylinder next. Find out where you want to place it, but it can't just be like touching it as a tangent. It has to be interacting with it. It needs to be connected to it somehow. So I'm going to start off with my ellipse. Remember, if we can see the top plane of this cube, we're going to be able to see the top plane of that cylinder if the perspective is consistent. Ellipse on the top and the bottom, and I'm going to overlap. Currently, I'm going to see all the things, meaning all the edges. But this is now where you need to start thinking through some things. I would like, you can choose this, whatever you want to do, I would like this cube to overlap this guy, and I want in space this cylinder to be hooking back and around. So this is what I'm going to do. Following the contour. my cylinder like that. Can then erase what I wouldn't see. And I'm going to assume that the cylinder is opaque. So this is now how my cylinder is interacting with my cube. We can see this little curve. Notice at the cut in of the cylinder, because it's wrapping around in space like this, it's a voluminous form, it has volume. So as it interacts with my cube, that cut in needs to wrap around that contour. Okay, next shape. Let's do a cone. This one will be easy. Excuse me. Let me go ahead and grab that ellipse. And I'm just going to bring him down just like this. Again, I'm overlapping, but now I need to decide how do I want this to be interacting with my cube. I'm going to have it cross into the top plane of my cube. So again, this is just like the cylinder. This is wrapping around in space with volume. So that's what would be happening right there. It's coming at an angle. The axis is coming at an angle, but this plane of the cube is flat. So I've got a curve right there. Okay. So I've got my cylinder, I've got my cone, both are interacting in some way that intersects the cube. Okay. Let's do the pyramid. I need to be able to see how something interacts with something else. So I can't just do this. You know, if I just did something like that and like, oh, it's interacting on the other side and I just can't see it, that's not going to count. I need to be able to see how it's interacting with the cube, because the whole point is to be able to see how are those intersections affecting that cutoff line. Is it curved? Is it smooth? Where is it? This is what's giving me the indication as I construct and build what the voluminous edge is doing. Is it wrapping around in space? Is it just a flat cutoff? So let me put the pyramid here on the side. Remember to match perspective. So I'm just going to keep that the same. Okay, so if this guy's like this and this guy will be like this. Okay. Now, what I could do as well, it would look like this if you could see through it. But I'm going to lightly erase that because I don't want too many lines to distract me. All right, so with this pyramid, I want this pyramid to interact and only be partially covered over and overlapped by this cube. So this cube is going to come over here, it's going to intersect it, and then it's going to cut it off. I can even do this. You see what has happened there? I thought through how the cube was going to intersect. And this is what is behind it right there. What helped me dictate, so this corner overlaps. So in space, this plane of the pyramid is still kind of hooking up under and a little bit farther away from us right there. But then this is flat, and then this line correlates to these lines right there. Okay, and then of course we got this little back corner, and this edge of the pyramid is visually overlapping this back corner of the cube. So that's why this guy is still going to hold strong right there. Just like that. All right, so we got our pyramid, our cone, our cylinder. We just need a sphere. So might be kind of fun just to put the sphere like here. Okay, light circle. It needs to be interacting with my cube. So I do need some sort of overlap. I'll overlap him on this side, similar to how I did with this guy right here. I want the cube to overlap here. It's going to wrap itself around. And I'll actually just let this then be the sphere. Let me hold in that line. So in this corner, this right there is overlapping the sphere visually. So that's why we see this corner. But then the sphere is getting chopped off. I like put the sphere right in that little corner of the cube. So we're gonna see this part of the sphere, but because he's physically larger, we're gonna see him hook underneath, just like that. So if I were to outline in blue what we would see here, and it's always helpful to sometimes give your brain a hint to what's going on, even with the shadows and the different planal changes. So I sometimes like to cross-hatch what's going on. Let's say light is coming from the left-hand side, just to keep things consistent. I can put some cross-hatch very loosely right there. Therefore, with this sphere, would kind of wrap around like that. With this cylinder, it would then wrap around with the contour lines like this. Same with this cone. Would be there. And you could argue that even then this cone would have maybe even like a cast shadow that would be cast over here. You know, if we really have light that is coming in from the left-hand side. But this quiz isn't about that. That would just be, you know, something that could kind of showcase volume as form is interacting with other forms because of how light is falling upon it. We'd also probably have a cast shadow here on the sphere just because it's interacting with this corner in the shadow area of the cube. But not to get too far into particulars, this would just be how you might help your brain out with the different sides, the different planal sides. I could then erase my pencil lines. And this would be what the outcome would be right there. And so now we have those 5 volumetric forms all combining together with different overlapping. And you can do this in many different variations. You don't have to be placing this stuff exactly where they are. You can be rotating them. You know, you can tilt things. You can take this the cylinder and flip him to be horizontally. It doesn't have to be vertical. The pyramid could have been inverted. Like I inverted the cone. So you can do some different things and position them however you want to position them. But ultimately, you're going to want to make sure you include all 5 of these core building blocks. And you're going to want to overlap them in a way that gets you to understand and draw how the spacing of overlap and contour lines are going to be affected with how they intersect with each other.